What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the Packer Man, and got some things I wanted to kind of get off my chest in regards to the absolute clusterfuck that we saw in the Blade intro series earlier tonight. Um, as some of you might know, I have a show called The Fuel in which I do race reviews on NASCAR, and in the past I've gotten pretty critical, I guess you could say, with some of the races that have gone on in the past. And there have been times where it didn't really matter who the driver was or who the person was, whether I was for them or against them. If they screwed up in some way, shape, or form, or if the race was a total, piece of garbage, I would let it be known, because as someone who is a reviewer, it is my job to let it be known how I felt about that event or what a person did. Whether, it doesn't matter who it is or what the wrongdoing was or whatever that case may be. Tonight's clean race in the Blade intro series was about the most pathetic fucking display of driving I've seen in WRP since I joined the league. And I've been a part of Wreckfest Racing Promotions since September. So that's what, almost 6 months now? And I'm going to be completely honest, just cards on the table, putting the chips down. Some of the best drivers in Wreckfest, they reside at Wreckfest Racing Promotions. Guys you see at the top of the leaderboards in pretty much every single track in the game, you're going to find at WRP. I mean, guys like Call Me Kyle, Warbird, Stanby, Project Asylum, he's there. Old Greg, he's a good driver. Sism, Kicking Pigeons. I mean, some of the best drivers in the game are in this league. So when you come to Wreckfest Racing Promotions, it's the best basically. And I mean, I was sitting there, because let's be honest here, I did not have a very good night tonight in both of the intro series. I mean, it was just, it's about the worst night I think I've ever had in WRP in terms of my performance. I mean, in the Blade series, I basically finished last in the first 2 rounds, because in the first race I got fucked in the death loop, and then in the Derby, I was basically gangbanged by everybody. Is that frustrating? Yeah, but it's frustrating in a different sense, in the fact that, I didn't perform when, honestly, expectations were a little bit higher than that, particularly in the Gorby series, because with the Wreck NATO track, which you're seeing on screen right now, I'd been practicing it time and time again, and I actually had a bit of a leg up on everybody else, because at one point I had a 7-second lead on everybody else. So yeah, it was pretty frustrating that I got knocked out early in that race, because I felt like I could have been a contender. So yeah, it was frustrating in that sense. So I decided to cut my losses early, which, there were a few people in the lobby that were wondering why I would do such a thing. I was last in both of the first 2 rounds. At that point, what is there to, to compete for, So I decided to bow out early. And looking back on it now, makes me glad that I did, because, like I said, this is some of the best drivers in the game, but what I saw in that fucking race was fucking amateur hour. Like, oh my fucking god, dude. I have not seen a more piss poor display of driving in WRP to date than that race. Like, it made the truck race tonight in the NASCAR truck series at Daytona look fucking tame in comparison. Like, what the fuck was that shit? I mean, you had people dive bombing each other into turn one, spinning each other out on the backstretch. You had people doing fucking demo derbies under caution, for God's sake. You know, on top of that, you had Warbird and Redneck jawing at each other, which, I mean, to start with, you know, something I'm going to say about that. I mean, it's funny at first, but when you hear it every single fucking week, you know, and there's some people here that just want to get on, you know, to race and have a good time. Some of us don't want to listen to that fucking bullshit week in and week out. It gets grating after a while. You know, and I get that, you know, the two have a quote unquote rivalry and they like to jaw jack each other, and that's all fine and dandy. But at some point, you know, you got to give it a rest every once in a while, because it just seems like every time they have some type of, you know, conversation, it's always, oh, go fuck yourself or this, that, and the other. And quite frankly, I'm sick and fucking tired of listening to it. Like, at some point, you got to just stop for a second and just take a breath and say enough's enough with that shit. Because, I mean, we've heard it just constantly over the past couple of weeks, and at some point, enough's enough. We get it. You have a fucking rivalry. Doesn't mean you have to fucking jawjack each other every single goddamn week. Because there's some people in the party that don't want to listen to that shit constantly. But that's neither here nor there. That's not the main focus of this first ever live rant. I never expected in my wildest imaginations that my first live rant would be about WRP, but here we are. But, you know, as someone who, you know, and I'll be completely honest here, if I have a pretty shitty, you know, outing, like if I fuck up or take somebody out, I mean, I'm my own worst critic when it comes to how I drive, you know. You know, and I try to own up to, you know, my mistakes. I mean, if I fuck up, I admit it, you know, because I mean, I'm my own worst critic. Because if I hold, you know, NASCAR drivers, you know, to a high standard, then I should be holding myself to that high standard. I mean, it's only fair, you know. So, I mean, and I think a lot of the people in WRP can vouch for me on that one. I mean, I'm my own worst critic. You know, and I think I've said that time and time again, you know, just how poorly I've done, or, you know, anything of that nature. But let's be completely real here, people. I mean, these were, you know, the best drivers, you know, in the league and in the game, basically driving like fucking amateurs. You know, and you can say what you want about, well, it was kind of fun, yeah, but I mean, when you look at it from this perspective, this is an organized racing league. I mean, if it was a banger event, then what the fuck ever. You know, it was like, you know, the first round, you know, at, you know, the Wrecknado or at Deathloop. I mean, if it was a banger race, then whatever. You know, that's just that's just part of the deal. The problem is the third round was a clean race. Emphasis on clean, which means that, you know, you shouldn't have been seeing some of the shit that was reserved for the banger race in this race, and yet we were seeing it left, right, and center. You know, and maybe, you know, some people might think, oh, I'm looking too far into this, but it just fucking irritates me because, you know, Kyle's really trying to get this league out there, you know, because, I mean, this is a big deal to him, you know what I mean? You know, and he wants to have the best drivers, you know, in the game compete in his league, you know, because it's like, this is where the best of the best compete. You know, and yeah, maybe there's not, you know, a whole lot on the line, maybe a picture, you know, and all that good stuff. You know, but I mean, a lot of us still, you know, enjoy it, and maybe some of us do take it seriously sometimes. I mean, I can be kind of guilty of that myself, but I mean, you know, that's what I think of his league, though. I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. When I first got into Wreckfest, the first thing I wanted to do when I started racing online and shit, I wanted to become part of a online racing league. You know, I was looking for racing leagues all over the place, and it just seemed like I couldn't find any, and it was so disappointing. So when I learned about, you know, Kyle's league, Wreckfest Racing Promotions, it instantly interested me, because it was like, you know, I wanted to be a part of that and, you know, see what it was like. And you know, when you know, it's some of the guys that I was racing with, you know, online in the public lobbies, you know, guys like Clever Links and Warbird and a couple others. I mean, they were there as well. So it's like, well, hell, this is perfect, you know. So, and plus Kyle, I mean, he tries to do things as fair as you possibly can, because there have been some leagues in this game that have been kind of crooked and shit. I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but, it's been well documented. But Kyle, he's kind of like on the straight and narrow. He tries to play things as fair as humanly possible, and that's one of the reasons why, I like coming back to this league, because it's right down the middle, he tries to take things as fair as humanly possible, which is one of the reasons why, I'm promoting it on my channel, because, I want to see this league grow into something, that people actually give a shit about, you know what I mean? But my goodness, I mean, these are supposed to be some of the best drivers, and it was total fucking amateur hour. And if that wasn't enough, I mean, the finish of it was just, it was a fucking headache inducer, because it's like, someone, I don't know who it was, but they tried to call a caution, because you're supposed to call a caution if you're like in trouble or something, and then everybody lines up. Well, you're not allowed to call cautions with 2 laps to go. At least that's what the rule is. Yet someone threw it anyway, and then everybody just kind of stopped, and then everybody started going again, and everybody was just in a giant. It was just a giant clusterfuck, And then they actually had to get to the point where it was like they did a 5-lap basically overtime period, and the 5-lap overtime period was the cleanest part of the entire race. And then of course you had a couple of drivers, getting into it, in the party, basically, oh, you turned me, and all this other shit. And it's just like, oh my God. I mean, I'm just sitting there listening to all this and watching all this go down, and I'm literally face palming, because it's like, what in the flying fuck, people? And at one point, they were just continuing to go at it, trying to talk over each other, just, it almost seemed like they were yelling at each other at one point. I was just like, Jesus H fucking Christ, people. Like, Jesus, you know what I mean? And it's true, because it's like, what the fuck, man? I mean, it was a headache inducer, to say the least. And, I mean, honestly, it might have seemed like a fun event for some people, but, I mean, it's not exactly a good look when you're trying to promote, your racing organization as, a top-notch organization, and then you have a race like that makes the fucking truck race look like a Sunday drive, basically. Because apparently the truck race tonight was a bit of a demo derby in and of itself, and it was fucking cleaner than the Blade Derby race, or the Blade Intro race, event, and there were less people involved in it. Like, how the fuck does that happen? I mean, and again, maybe I am looking into too much into this, but you know what? I don't care. This is an organization I actually fucking care about, I want to see it grow and thrive, and shit like this, especially when I'm live streaming it on my channel, even though I don't have a big following. I mean, there were still some new people tonight that took notice of it, and they're going to be like, man, well, it looks like a fucking joke. Maybe I do care a little bit too much, but at least I fucking care. I mean, that should account for something, right? Or am I the only motherfucker that feels that way? I don't know. Anyways, I just wanted to get that off my chest. I mean, what happened tonight was, and I'm not talking about, what happened with me personally in both events. I mean, it was a disaster for me, but that's not the focus of this video. It's just what the fuck, man. Just what the fuck. Honestly, when you have drivers of that caliber, I know it's called Wreckfest, but a lot of us, there's a reason why there are banger events and clean racing events. And it just felt like everything was kind of flip-flopped in tonight's Blade event in particular. The banger event felt cleaner than the fucking clean race, It's like, it's just kind of frustrating. And honestly, especially as drivers, we need to. I think we need to comport ourselves a little better than that because I mean, especially with the banter afterwards, and it just sounded like people were yelling at each other, like we're a fucking bunch of fucking middle school kids on the playground just yelling at each other because you cheated in the fucking board game. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, people. I mean, do I vent my frustrations at times? Sure I do. But I don't keep it going for 20, 30 fucking minutes straight, non-stop. Like, Jesus Christ, that gets old after a while. But anyways, that's gonna do it. I've said my piece. I've gotten it off my chest. I'm done with it. This is a done issue as far as I'm concerned. I just wanted to get it off my chest because ranting helps me decompress, I guess you could say. Because once I get everything off my chest, I feel a lot better. So, and this will be the last. This video will basically be the only time you'll ever hear me talk about those two events again. Because from a personal perspective, considering how shitty I performed in both events tonight, I don't want to speak of them ever again anyways. So that's going to do it. For those of you that watch this, I apologize for seemingly coming off like an asshole, but I mean, I had to get it off my chest because it was just something that really fucking irritated me, and getting it off my chest is the best way to kind of decompress and just get it out of my system, and I'll be done with it now, and this will be the last I speak of it. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this is the Packer Man signing out.